What is up, guys, and welcome back to 7th Street. Please don't be jealous of my super cool 80s porno mustache. We can't all have awesome genes like I do. Thank you so much for being here for the pilot episode for my brand new review series where we review Wizard Big Boxes. If you don't know what Wizard Big Boxes are, a simple Google search will tell you more than you need to know, but a simple abridged version is in about 1984. Charles Band started releasing cult classic grindhouse, relatively unknown horror films in this big box format, which is sort of copying porno distribution at the time. The big box was really designed just to grab the attention of unsuspecting patrons walking through the local video shops. So anyway, this review is gonna get a little bit messy, I think, because I'm gonna break it up into two sections. Both are out of 5 stars, equaling 10 stars. The first section is going to be devoted towards the packaging, the cover, the title, the synopsis on the back, and the second section is going to be reviewing the movie themselves. So without further ado, let's get this fucking thing started.
Wizard Video invites you to take the total terror test.
So I had a little bit of a hard time deciding which Wizard Big Box I was going to review first. Well, what better way to start than at the end, with one of the very last releases by Wizard Video, Headless Eyes, which is one of my favorite covers of all time. I mean, how can you look at this and not just absolutely want to grab it off the shelf and watch it? I mean, the cover is ridiculous. It's like this giant eye monster crawling away from this woman on the ground, presumably dead. When I first saw this, I actually immediately thought, I've seen this before. I've seen this in a movie rental store. I know that it wasn't a Wizard Big Box. I mean, Hollywood Videos didn't have Wizard Big Boxes, I'm guessing, at all. And then I realized Charles Band released Wizard Video. He also owns Full Moon Productions, which released The Killer Eye, which is essentially the same cover. I think the woman's in a little bit different of a position, and I think the eye is like maybe a little more mutated, but the city and the background, everything about it is almost exactly the same. If you notice at the top, it's got this awesome little sticker here that says "Too Gory for the Silver Screen," which is complete bullshit. It's too shitty for the silver screen. Nobody wanted to release this film. I think that it may have played in the Grindhouse. I've heard that it played on a double bill. I'm not sure what the other movie is, but I can't imagine that it had a very wide release. It was made, I think, in 1971, and this was released in the late 80s. I mean, this was one of the last big boxes to be released. So clearly, Charles Band was scraping the bottom of the barrel looking for more content that he could just get out there. It's funny that they had such a cool cover for this. I mean, that's a beautiful cover. They took a lot of time. Somebody took a lot of time designing this, and it's beautiful. If you take a look at the back, there are 2 stills on the back that are nowhere in the movie. I don't think they're even behind-the-scenes production stills. I've watched this multiple times, and I don't remember any of these scenes ever. These are definitely not actors in the movie. I think that this is, unfortunately, part of that trend that well, I guess it still happens with DVD covers and Blu-ray covers, where they'll do, like, a photo shoot later on, and they just plaster that all over the back. And you know that the movie is probably not the best when they do this. Overall, I'd give the Headless Eyes Big Box 4 out of 5 stars. The only thing keeping it from a perfect score are the misleading stills on the back. Now that we got that settled, let's pop the movie in. Headless Eyes, or The Headless Eyes as the title card says. I don't know why Wizard Video does that. They seem to retitle everything. Like, what was the point of dropping "the" out of The Headless Eyes? It's not like it hides the movie. Whatever. Anyhow, it was directed by Kent Bateman, who I just thought was sort of a nobody. I had always seen his name in the movie and just sort of written it off until a couple of days ago when I was looking him up, and he's the father of Jason Bateman, the guy from Arrested Development and Juno and everything. He's like a super popular actor. His dad is the director of Headless Eyes, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Just one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. Anyhow, the movie is about this lonely artist who one night he's like stealing shit from this lady's house, and she wakes up in the middle of the night and starts to grapple with him, and he's just screaming, "I need $60 to cover my rent."
Please don't scream, lady! Please don't scream, please! Please, all I want is $65 for my lousy rent!
Which I think is hilarious. Like, how much is your rent that you're only $60 short and you're like stealing shit from people? Isn't $60 pretty easy to get? Anyway, she grabs the nearest weapon she can find, which happens to be a spoon.
A spoon, Morty? A spoon? I'm sorry! There's a pile of silverware next to you and you throw me the one thing that can never kill anything? All right, okay!
And scoops the guy's eye out, and he immediately starts screaming, "My eye! My eye!" But it's just on this continuous loop. It's just like the same piece of dialogue repeated over and over again as he starts to stumble out of the apartment. And then you get the title, Headless Eyes. That's literally the first scene of the movie. And that looped dialogue you better like and get used to, because they use it throughout the fucking movie. Every time this guy hallucinates or has a flashback or is having a mental breakdown in the streets of New York, you hear that same piece of dialogue looped over and over again.
I like your work. Good. I like your work.
Anyhow, the movie cuts to some time later, and now he's like this balding, fat, pirate-looking dude who's just like, he's obsessed with eyeballs. He hallucinates about them, and he is apparently an aspiring artist, but he's really just like drawing eyeballs and gluing fake eyeballs to things. I mean, it's not super artistic. But anyhow, he's working one night, and this drunk couple stumbles by his shop where he sells art and lives, I guess, and they start making fun of him. So he follows them back home and knocks on the door, and this couple answers the door, and they're like, "Oh, hey, it's that guy that we were making fun of in the window shop."
Harry, it's our man from the window. Would you like a drink?
So, of course, he starts to bludgeon them to death and scoop their eyeballs out with a spoon. Then it just cuts back to him with his sister. And that's the biggest discrepancy in this movie, is the main character. He's like sometimes a raving lunatic, and sometimes he's like competent enough to own his own shop. I think that this movie is an absolute gem to watch. I mean, even in the next scene, he meets this girl and he's walking down the street and he's covered in blood, and the woman's like, "Oh, you know what happened? Well, I'll take care of you." And she takes him home and starts cleaning him up. And he's like this like really gross looking dude living in Manhattan somewhere, and he's missing an eye, and people are just like taking him out, like, "Hey, yeah, come to my house." And of course he's super nice until he asks her what she does for a living, and she goes, "I'm a hooker."
I'm a hooker. You know, a streetwalker.
A streetwalker? What is that? Why does she do this? I don't know what this is. A cat? It's hilarious. There are so many scenes that are just laugh out loud funny. From hovering over dead bodies going, "You know what this is? This is a spoon. This is a spoon." Which is just hilarious. I don't know why. I don't know if that was an acting choice or if Kent Bateman insisted that he did something that ridiculous. To the scene where there's this news reporter covering some random murder in New York. I feel like there are a lot of murders in New York, not to make like front page of everything, But you can totally tell that the director said, oh, we'll just have people improv this because it'll seem real.
How do you feel about having a murder committed in the neighborhood? Does it frighten people much?
It does. I don't walk around this part of the block anymore. I get so scared. When people ask me, why don't I walk around here? I told them there was a murder in this house here. And they asked me how I felt. I said, I'm very nervous.
Right, thank you.
Except for it seems... it's hilarious. It seems unrehearsed because it is unrehearsed. You just have these non-actors rambling on about, oh, I used to go out with this girl. Then you get this guy who I swear is Jeff Goldblum before he got big. He looks like Jeff Goldblum. He sounds like Jeff Goldblum. He's even like chewing gum.
Yeah, I used to see her a lot.
And how long have you known her?
I know her for about 3 years, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not even much of an ending. He's like chasing this girl around through a meat packing plant, and he ends up getting locked in the meat freezer. And the next morning, they just like find him frozen to death. And you get one more piece of looped audio from somewhere else in the film. I can never figure out exactly what he's saying, but that's the end of the movie. He just freezes to death. There's like no story actually arrived at. But the movie sort of works on its own level. You can tell that Kent Bateman was probably trying to make an art house kind of film, or that the editor was trying to make it artsy. It doesn't come off as artsy, but it works in its own way. Like, if you get too stoned and watch this movie, it will cause a panic attack or paranoia.
I know who did it. I know.
Did it, old lady?
I know who did it.
And it really does replicate madness, which I think works. It works for the main character. Overall, I give Headless Eyes 4 out of 5 stars. Although it's probably only worth 2 stars in the normal world, it's worth it just to tell someone that Headless Eyes is 4 out of 5 stars. All in all, Headless Eyes receives 8 out of 10 stars. Check it out.